Welcome, everyone. This is Richard Carlton here, and I am welcoming you to Friday, 1 hour of FileMaker live stream training here at fmtraining.tv. Welcome. We are simulcasting in 1080 high definition to Twitch and to YouTube simulcast, so you can watch at either location. Feel free to adjust the resolution as appropriate. We are designing it or running it specifically so you should be able to see everything pretty nicely. This is my audio setup. I'm going to hide that for the moment. So welcome. Today's topic is going to be CRM basics, CRM related questions. Once again, talking about the FileMaker platform, how it works great for building a CRM or using a CRM or somehow solving an important business problem. And what I will tell you is that we find, I would say on half the projects that we talk to people, that they need. And what is a CRM? Customer management relationship. It's basically tracking your contacts, tracking your customers, tracking the leads, having a funnel, some sort of funnel system where you track them in and then you communicate with them, you track the communications. And of course, to each business, it's a little different. The variables, I mean, that part of it is like consistent with businesses for the most part. But then the process of selling to them and working with a sales team, or they buy online or whatever the people do, there's probably invoices involved. At some point, it gets into accounting. When you get to accounting, accounting is not part generally of a CRM. Now, it doesn't mean it can't be in your system. You can do whatever you want in FileMaker. If you want little green aliens to pop out on the layout, we can do that. I have certain things in my database where little ferrets and weasels and stuff will pop out in our internal CRM if certain criteria happen. It's really kind of funny. So you could do anything you want, but from a general industry standpoint, CRMs are managing the customer relationship, delivering the work to them, delivering products, shipping products to them. And then, of course, you can have an accounting system, which typically is separate, but the ERP is enterprise resource planning, but the idea is that your CRM system is going to be able to talk to, communicate with your accounting system. So we frequently see where FileMaker, a CRM system, will talk to like QuickBooks. That's very popular. If you're a very large business and you might not use QuickBooks, you would use some other system, but FileMaker can still talk to that as well. So it's important that you ask questions along the way, or this is going to be a very short session. I want to make sure that we try to stay on topic, but there's a lot here to cover, and it's just a matter of people are, it's Friday, and if they're engaged, we had IMOG here, and then obviously we had a number of people here, and then IMOG took a new job somewhere, and he disappeared, so we no longer see him, which is too bad. He was a pretty awesome person. Michael just dropped a giant question, right? So Michael's asking about, we're back to the deprecated conversation, really, which is about, about deprecated features conversation. That's really a Monday conversation. What we'll do is, before we get into today, I'll take a swing at answering it, but I want to make sure that I focus on the CRM component of it first. I mean, we have been addressing this. I know that we've talked about deprecated features, especially runtime or peer-to-peer, almost every day. Now, if you feel like your question hasn't been answered, feel free to write it in there, and we'll do more of an open-ended Q&A towards the end here. David Castillo, are you there?
Yes, sir.
You are here. David is a very, he's like whenever you read the stories about Clark Kent and the mild-mannered reporter and all that kind of stuff. David Castillo is a mild-mannered video editor guy. And so very mellow, very quiet. And so the questions, he will be helping me keep track of it. David, keep track of Michael's question. Make sure we come back to it today before the end of the day. Echo Foxtrot Golf asked about, since we're talking about integrating a CRM with QuickBooks, can you integrate a CRM with Salesforce? Well, Salesforce really, at the end of the day, is a CRM. That's really what its claim to fame is. See, what Salesforce is a pre-built CRM that is really expensive and fairly technical to customize. And so the people can customize it, but really only programmer level people can do that. There's never going to be any power users, or, most of the people here, unless you have 7 or 8, 10 years of programming experience, you're not going to be inside Salesforce customizing it. So I mean, I could do it, but a lot of people just don't have that kind of a skill set, and they don't want to. They have lives, right? So Salesforce is a CRM. The cost of Salesforce starts realistically at about $85 per month. I think they have a throwaway demo tier at about $50 per user per month. And that's, if you're wondering where FileMaker gets its pricing on how they price themselves, that's FileMaker's thought process, right? FileMaker sees themselves kind of as potentially a competitor to Salesforce, except they're kind of not really, but they kind of are, because they're two totally different situations. So understand what Salesforce is. Salesforce is a giant company, not as big as Apple by any stretch, but they do, I think, $6 billion a year in work. FileMaker probably sells $250 million of products. So Salesforce is probably 50 times bigger. Why is it bigger? Because a lot of companies needed a completely canned, pre-built CRM system that would scale infinitely and worked on any browser, basically. And so that's what Salesforce created. It's kind of like this cookie. Like if we build FM Starting Point, and we didn't say, and you can't customize it, you just have to use it our way. And Salesforce was built out with 1 million reports and 1 million features. And then we said that you can, at $85 a user per month, then you can deploy it for as many users as you want, right? I mean, so that's 5 people times 85 or 100 people times 85. And so Salesforce can be cost prohibitive. However, at one point, FileMaker Incorporated, when they had their new management team that kind of came back in about 4 years ago, the first thing they did was they put Salesforce in the organization. Why? Because they could build what they wanted in FileMaker, but it would have taken them a period of time to build the CRM, and they didn't want to build it. So what FileMaker does, they kind of track their customers and stuff with Salesforce because it was a pre-canned, pre-built system. But then some things are customized specific to the FileMaker or Claris process. Every business is a little different. And so that's where having a canned CRM is useful. It gets you going quick. But then as your workflow changes, like for example, FileMaker tracks the customers, talks to customers, and engages with the customers. And as they interact with the customers, is a thing called lead scoring. You're scoring the customers on engagement. We even do that, right? And so as people log in and download copies of Starting Point, our system tracks that, and it gives you a little score. And if you want to talk about that sometime, that would be a really interesting conversation. It's kind of this niche idea that if you have a CRM, then how can you tell great leads or great customer potential from less engaged customers, right? For example, if you showed up here and had questions, then you would score, and we knew about it. We'd put you in the CRM, and it would give you little points. So then the people that are selling know that these people are more engaged. Since they're more engaged, they're likely to want to buy products. So that's kind of the idea. That's the whole idea with lead scoring. And so Salesforce, their starting tier is like $85 a month, right? And then they have tiers that go all the way up to like $350 a month. And if you buy the super high tiers, you can get things like you put in a contact information, and it develops this intelligence. It goes out on the internet and through open source means and things like that. You're always getting ads like, hey, check someone's criminal background history, or check where they live, or check how much money they might have. So that's what this system does. It can go back and bring to you this person, say, this person downloaded a sample of your file, did this, did that. And they actually make 100, we guess, based upon certain criteria that's public source information, we guess they make $125,000 a year, and they might have this much discretionary income potentially, and they're at this level within a company. If you could actually have a lead come in and you knew how much money they could spend and what their influence was at an organization, that's super valuable. Salesforce can do that. And they charge $300 and whatever dollars per user per month. So if you have 5 people using it, that's $1,500 a month. So it has to be high value for you in that area. FileMaker could do that, but you would have to take a CRM and customize it or build it or whatever. So Salesforce basically comes to the plate with a completed solution that is kind of ready to go, assuming that you want to do business their way with a workflow that they kind of subscribe to. Yeah, so that's okay. He asked the same question 2 different ways. So we have done projects, and we have videos on our video training where we talk about the general process of moving data. We would primarily have customers so much that don't move from FileMaker to Salesforce. Most of the time they get Salesforce and then they want to move to FileMaker because they realize it's costing them a ton of money and they don't need what it does. And so we did a video where we do an export of the data out of Salesforce, and we have to mirror match it and have it load into FileMaker. It's not a trivial exercise. It's going to take some work, and probably you want to get some help doing it. But for example, at the time we shot the video, which was 18 months ago, Salesforce had like 122 tables in the system. I'm going to go ahead and mute this over here. They had 122 tables in their system. And so, for example, like Starting Point has 35 tables. And so they have a lot of tables. And when we did an export for a customer, we found the customer, because of the way they were using it, only had data in like 20 tables. And so you have to dump that data out, then you have to figure out where that mirrors in your system, and then do an import. Now that's like a one-time data transition. If you want to do a live data interaction between FileMaker and Salesforce, yeah, you can do an API and do that. It's way beyond what we can cover in an you would probably, if I was going to be me, I would investigate doing it with Zapier. Online API tool, fairly fleshed out, fairly reliable. We'd look at coding it with that. Once again, you're going to need to be pretty much a senior level developer to pull that off. A highly gifted intermediate developer, maybe, but a senior level developer is someone who has got 7 years of, in my definition, they can pass the certificate. They have and do pass the certification test with FileMaker or Claris has. And they also have about 7 years of developing FileMaker solutions, a variety of FileMaker solutions. And that's typically at the point where that's typically the point where you become a senior engineer. I'm not going to get into the certification test. I guess we could have a conversation about that someday. That would be interesting, a conversation to have. Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, and that's what Salesforce does, because it integrates with a lot of different systems, and there's pricing tiers between $85 and $350 or $380. You can look at it. But I mean, the idea of having intelligence, like my sales guy would love to know, if you called him and said, hey, I'd like a quote for FileMaker, he would like to know if you're a decision-making person with an organization, you have a budget, discretionary budget, things like that. Salesforce will go troll that data for you and give it to you. It's a little creepy. Anyway, but if you're in a big business and you're selling, products that are $250,000, $500,000 products like houses and high-end cars and luxury items and things like that, then that might be able to be useful and profitable for you. So I have answered that question, and that's Wolf Paws there. That's right. So that's Wolf Paw 69 from basically our Los Osos office, although most of the Los Osos people are working at home. And then obviously we have Elzo from Brazil, and Johnny, I guess that's Johnny My Mac. Not sure where he is from, but there you go. Yeah, so that's Salesforce. So we have a video on that. If you do a search, hey, David Castillo, if you want to find me the link, see if it's a public video on moving from Salesforce to FileMaker. And if so, we'll post that link for people here. That's a slightly older video. It's an older video that, but Salesforce hasn't changed. I mean, they don't re-engineer it every year or anything like that. Obviously they add more, better kind of charts and reporting, things like that to it. So let's pivot back to FileMaker. So what is FileMaker? So understand visually, like, what is FileMaker? FileMaker is where you walk into Home Depot. And for those of you, Lowe's, Home Depot, some sort of hardware store, big, not talking small hardware store. I'm talking like the big, giant warehouse hardware stores. You walk in there and you need a house. You need a house. And you walk into the hardware store, and everything you need to build the house is in the building. I'm pretty much sure that you could build the entire house. In fact, I'm positive, because we've kind of done that before. Long story. By buying materials that are in Home Depot. And you can build a house of any size with that. And so that's really a great analogy for what FileMaker is. So what is Salesforce? Salesforce is a two-story, actually more than that. It's like a two-story house that's on the beach in California, overlooking the ocean, with 5 acres and a great view and a tennis court and stuff like that. That's what Salesforce is. So you're like, well, holy crap, I want that, except it comes with a price. And if for some reason you don't like the design of the house, like the way the floor plan's laid out or stuff like that, unless you're going to pay a ton of money, you're pretty screwed. it gets cost prohibitive to rearrange the house, right? And so Salesforce is really not so much a warehouse of tools. It kind of is. It's like really if you, the best analogy would be like you have the mansion with 5 acres on the ocean in California or in downtown New York. You can only imagine how expensive that would be. You know, and then behind the property is kind of a Home Depot, but the Home Depot, you know, is like 10 times the price of all the normal Home Depot products. So it's really expensive. But big business gets, but the deal is you spend the money immediately and you instantly get the mansion. With FileMaker, you come into FileMaker and you're going to spend the money, but you get FileMaker, but then you're in Home Depot and you're like, holy shit, I got to build a house, right? I mean, really, that's a lot of work, right? And so, yeah, I know because I was there with that. So what does FM Starting Point do, or what are CRMs that you can get going for the FileMaker platform? If you download a free CRM like FM Starting Point, then what you're doing is like FM Starting Point, good analogy, it's a 2-story, 2,000 square foot house that's pre-built, okay? And by the way, the house is free. Now, to get the house, you have to kind of buy the Home Depot. So it's like you bought FileMaker, so you get access to Home Depot. And then if you go through the hallway out to the other side of the building, oh, by the way, here's a free house for you. That's why it's so popular. That's why we use it so much. Now, is it as amazing? Does it have every last possible feature that Salesforce does? No, it's not designed to be that way. It's designed to be kind of a great starter position. Now, some people get Starting Point and they use it and they never customize it because it really solves all their problems. But a lot of you are here because you want to customize it or have customized it. You're thinking about customizing it. So that really becomes, you know, part of the question. So there's the video right there on Salesforce. So recommend you watch that later. If you watch it right now, and then you ask me questions about it, I'm going to ignore the questions because I would need to refresh myself on the video. I just remember the highlights of the video. That it does have an export function and you can dump the data out, and it's a lot of tables, and you have to figure out how to map that data in. Now, in terms of free CRMs that are out, I mean, obviously in the FileMaker community, there are people who've created paid CRMs. And so there are CRMs, most of the CRMs like have a $500 per user price on them, things like that. So if you buy 5 copies of it, you need $2,500. Most of the CRMs are not designed to be opened up under the hood and worked on. So it's like if you had the house behind the Home Depot, you got the house, you paid for the house, or it was free house, but then there's nothing in the house is like locked down and you can't work on it. You can't get out. If it sees you coming with power tools or screwdrivers or anything to customize the house, you're locked out of that. That's largely what happens. With Starting Point, it's designed to be, one is a CRM, but it's also designed to be a teaching subject. It's like a school. So you can use it for your house, but also I can invite the classroom in there, and we're going to learn how to tear out walls and rebuild it and do things like that. That's why it's so great. Now, FileMaker periodically has dabbled with the idea of a CRM, or Claris, I should say. And to my way of thinking, and I think I'll show you why this is, they've never quite figured out what's involved with that or how to be successful with it. It's easy to talk a good game like, yeah, I got a CRM and ours is awesome and it's the best ever. In fact, a number of consultancies I've run into, they say, well, Richard's got a free CRM, so we should chase him and do what he does. And so then they put out a CRM and they update it, once, whenever. But ours is continuously updated, revised, and we have entire, as I go through the training course, we always keep an eye on using that as a demo if we need a practical demo. Sometimes we build it like a standalone demo, but it's a good demo to use to go in there because it's practical. So what I want to do real quick is show you an important concept that we do here. A lot of you wonder why I keep hammering on this idea or beating on this idea that you need to think about performance. And the reason is that and this gets back to something one of you said the other day, said, hey, Nick Hunter should go back to work for Claris. And we're laughing about that conversation. We're actually going to end up revisiting this right now. And what it is the idea that you can throw something, when you're learning to build a FileMaker application, like you go into Home Depot and you've never built a house before, the first house you're going to build, you'll be happy because it works. You can sleep there. It keeps you out of the rain. But it may not be the best designed house, right? Because it's your very first one, right? Think about that. And then as you start to build you use the house, you realize, so we need to fix it and make it better, make it more efficient. Like maybe the hallway, you build a hallway and you're just building it. You don't really think about it. You build a hallway literally 2 feet wide. So you can go down the hallway, but 2 people can't pass each other on the hallway. That's the kind of stuff that goes on when you build your first application. It works. You can walk in and down the hallway, but really for practical application, you need the ability for 5 or 10 people to walk down a hallway and not necessarily run into each other, right? In some hallways in some houses are pretty narrow. Most more newer houses, like the hallway upstairs from my house, this is a 20-some-odd-year-old house, but it's, 9 feet, 10 feet wide, right? And that allows you to do all sorts of stuff in the hallway. So, people don't have to run into each other. And that's a great example of you build it once and you go back and you go, we've got to modify it, make it better. So what we've done with Starting Point is we've cut the corner on that. We're always hammering on making sure that you have a performant application. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the outside icons for the moment. And once again, if you go back and watch the charting video, we spent a lot of time discussing how to make the charts operate rapidly, how to do things fast, how to have a dashboard like you see right here, make it work well. Notice that I opened it up. It didn't, there was no lag in it. Now, there's not a lot of records in this specific file. If I go back over here, there's 8,300 records. It's a local file, but I have, we're going to do a big beefy database a webinar where we'll put, we had one where we had like 15 million records in it or whatever it was. And it was pretty quick, almost as quick as this one right here. In fact, it was you had to look hard to see it where it slow down a little bit. Now, what we did run into is I got, Claris shipped a CRM about 2 years ago, 18 months ago, and it's still on their website. You can download it today. And people are like, oh, Richard, what do you think about this competition from Claris, making a CRM so they can have a CRM too with you? And I'm like, well, they are Apple, right? They can do whatever they want. And of course, being Apple, you'd expect their product to be vastly superior to the other things that are out there. And I'm like, okay. So someone goes, well, let's download it and check it out. And I'm like, okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So if you download this, go to the website, go to their CRM, FileMaker CRM. It's the website here. Let me move myself out of the way. I'm just going to make myself small for now. And so this is their website, and you can go through the process of try the sample app, and you have to give them your name and information so they have your information. So you're like, okay, cool. So then you open up the CRM, and it comes with a little bit of sample data, and you're like, oh, that looks cool. It's a little different than ours. It doesn't have as much stuff in it, which is fine, but it's free, and it seems to work great. It's like, okay, great. That's awesome. And so I was like, okay, it's great. So then I get this call, and the person was mad at me. And the person was mad because they thought when they download it, frequently people get confused between Starting Point and RCC and our training we do in Claris, right? Because they assume that Claris does lots and lots of high quality training, and Claris does very, very little video training because they don't really have a dedicated team for that. And so what happens is that people open up, what they did is they got in this file, they started using it, they put it on a server, and then they had a problem with it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a copy of this CRM on a server. So the server is about 75 miles away in a data center, so it's not really that far away. If you're into kilometers, that's like 100 kilometers or 110 kilometers. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say open host. I'm going to say show host. We have a server in Santa Clara. I'm in Fairfield right now, server 13. These are all kinds of sample files on there. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it to open up this file. So I think it's called, I did a search for CRM in here. It says the FileMaker CRM. And so you open it up and it comes open in here and you're like, okay, so what we did is the customer put in this case, it was 100,000 records, right? Which really is not that many records. Most of my databases, my CRMs that we actively use have 1 million plus records in them. And how does that happen? Well, when you're in business for more than 6 months, you start to collect records on people, and as you interact with them, things like that. So you come over here and it's like, that's good. You come over to contacts, a little bit of a lag there. It's not too bad. You can look at what's going on here. You can check and see how things are going, and you'll say done. And then, and so people are navigating around here, and I got people yelling at me because they got to this. They went to my dashboard, and then this is what happens, right? And and we're waiting for it to draw, and except that it's not drawing, right? And it's like, okay, well maybe this is a fluke. Maybe FileMaker server is running a backup, and because the backup's running, it's slowing us down. But that's not the case either. And so we got some data, and we're waiting. We're like, yeah, this is kind of strange, right? We're like, okay, so here we are. What's happening? What's going on? And we're waiting. And while it's doing this, I think you can jump somewhere else. But if you wanted to see any information here, you're toast. And if you leave and then you come back, miracles of miracles, it pretty much tries to pick up where it was at if it remembers, but it frequently will forget where it was at, and it starts all over again, right? And so it's trying. And we've actually had this, I tested this earlier today. At 5 minutes, I gave up. I had to force quit the application. So what happened is someone built a CRM who didn't think about performance, right? And if you build an application, you don't think about performance, this is what you get. You get a big basket of unusable stuff. And so I understand it makes a great demo if you have 10 records or 100 records or whatever it is. But when you put it on the cloud and you say, hey, let's sell this to 100 people or sell it to 1,000 people or have a team of users use it, and then there's a million records. Imagine this with 200,000 or 300,000 records in it. I mean, this is still, I don't know how long this is going to take. It's actually much faster than it was earlier. But I think I'd ran some of these reports earlier, so maybe FileMaker was trying to remember that. So now we've got that information there. And so the idea with a CRM is that you don't go to layouts and you don't have it start just generating data or generating charts, generating reports, running calculations without your explicit say-so. That's a real bad idea, and that's what this is. So if those of you remember the charting conversation over here that Calvin put together, we specifically went through training on this. We go through Calvin's charting training right here. We spent hours. By the way, that's still spinning. Will it let me get into this? Oh, here it is over here. Let me see if I can do this. So it's going to let me fire this up. So notice that the charts display here instantly. Now, we don't have that terrible many records in here. I think if we went back to, where was it? Invoices. Yeah, there's only 600 in here. It's pretty quick. But the point is that with 1 million records, this chart over here would display at the same speed because we don't force it to rerun every time because we've thought about performance. It's very important. And so the idea is that you get into applications, some of which made by Apple Incorporated. And it's like, right? And so, you know, it's a really great example. It makes example for my training of what not to do, right? Like the other day we had April Fool's Day and we had a little fun with a couple videos, but then we spent time discussing what not to do with relational diagrams, what not to do with user interfaces, things like that. So partly learning what to do is maybe to emphasize maybe what you shouldn't be doing, right? Because you're going to design yourself into a hole, right? And so partly for me to show you what the good way to do it is, but then also so that's positive reinforcement and then a little bit of negative reinforcement, I guess, to show you. Because this right here, if this was my solution and I had built this, I'm pretty positive that that FileMaker would, or someone at Apple or whatever, if we built this for them, they would call at me and scream at me on the phone. They would absolutely do that. And why would they do that? Because this, if you build this for a customer, they will scream. It's like, if you build it, they will come. If you build this, they will scream on the phone at you that you're incompetent and you're worthless. And I don't want to have that happen to me. It's managing customers that are well behaved, where everyone's on the same page, is challenging enough without actually deliberately lighting things on fire at your customer's office. And whether your customer's in-house, it's your own company, or some outside person, it doesn't matter. You're building, unless you're building everything for yourself, in which case maybe you see this and you're totally good with that because you're willing to wait and sitting here for 5 or 10 minutes is totally acceptable, right? And once again, this is 100,000 records, which is not, I have some customers that don't have 100,000 records, but most of them have a whole lot more than that. And it just exacerbates this problem. problem quite a bit. So, questions from the team. Can we just expand it better? Things you need at least. How I may. So, Topcat, do you understand Topcat's question? What's Top's question?
I believe it is more of a statement. He's just saying that CRMs are exactly what you need, and that's how he uses it to make his information.
Right. So that's fine. So, yeah. So I mean, a lot of what we do in this live training is to answer questions, interact with you. Please ask questions. Once again, if you're off topic, we'll save it towards the end. Although we're already 30 minutes into this, and so notice it's still going. So I don't, I mean, I guess it's great or whatever. But if you had relevant information in here that saw, and having it spin, I guarantee. See, part of, I mean, okay, so let me just share something else with you. So there was a study years ago, and this is back in like 2000. And basically the study said that if a user clicked a button and they didn't get a response within about between 8 and 15 seconds, they would get bored and move off and they would lose track and focus. Now, technology has gotten faster, and a lot of people do shopping on Amazon and shopping on, I don't know if eBay is such a thing anymore. I think it still is for some people. But Amazon's really this big behemoth, right? And so people, it's almost like because so many people are there, they're setting the benchmark for performance. Like when you click a button, if Amazon does it, that's the normal, and you should match that, right? And so anymore, if you don't get a response within about 2 or 3 seconds, you're too slow. And so really when you come to layouts and you start stopwatching things, what used to be 10 or 15 seconds is acceptable. Now it's 2 or 3 seconds, right? And so obviously we have failed here with this, and I'll try to, that one allowed me to quit earlier. It was sufficiently stuck. I had to force quit the application. But the idea is to generate charts, but then only reset and refresh the charts when you want to. So if you press a button, it might take it a little bit, and so you can schedule that to happen or have it happen manually when you want it to go, only when the charts need to be updated. Or you can tell the server with a scheduled script to update them once an hour or once at midnight or something like that, right? So there's a lot of options on how to do it, but you have to follow along with that conversation we had in our charting video. We make sure that you check out the charting video if we have the project. Yeah, so Christian's talking about a project 320 million records, right? And design's critical. Yeah. So really, either you could listen to what I have to say, or ignore me, and then just have your phones set to scream, or you could hide. I mean, we've had customers. I've heard stories about developers who blow stuff up and then they hide from their customers and disappear. I can remember a couple people that are famous. In fact, they wore out their welcome so bad in California, they moved to another state and started all over. And they make endless promises, charge about $50 an hour, and then melt the stuff down. And I had people chase them, trying to get money back. Bad stuff. So you hear stories about stuff over the water cooler, and you shake your head. Because there really is the correct way of, I don't want to say correct, but there's a way that results in a very high performance, quick application. If you want to learn more about that kind of stuff, check out the lean design stuff that Nick put together on the website. So I'm going to do the real quick the real quick advertisement here. So this training is sponsored by livetraining.tv. If you go to livetraining.tv, up here, or livetraining.tv, fmtraining.tv. Sorry, my bad. I screw that up about every other time. fmtraining.tv, you come here, you can see our live training schedule, what's coming up. Deprecated features are Monday, very exciting. And then you can check out our courses and, of course, the bundles if you want to not like mess around with like individual little courses like Go here and Pro here, things like you just want it all. This is the way to do it. Send it if you want a discount, special discount price for people here. I know some of you have cashed in on this. You want $50 off these prices. Then send an email to support RC Consulting and ask for that. And then I'll probably have a Christian call me wanting to know what the hell I do with that. And then I will tell him that they have a special email for you with the discount coupon. right? And it's kind of funny. So yeah, I tell staff have been really busy, and with all the mayhem and all the staying at home, and some people's brains are partially functioning, and or you tell them something that's peripheral and they forget. So you just have to have more patience these days with everything going on. And if you're stuck at home, time to learn some FileMaker, get your skills up to help out your business, help out your customers, make the people using FileMaker, make them more efficient, because the business is going to come out of this and be ripping. And the businesses that will do well will be the businesses that have a higher degree of efficiency. They have embraced automation, and they don't need to. I mean, because here's the thing: right now, you can go hire people. That'll be easy. In 6 months, I think there's going to be a real shortage of staff again, right? And potentially worse than last time. So just keep in mind that you want to be able to have databases that are automated and not have applications where you got some person just sitting there like a rubber stamp on the computer beating away on it for 30 hours a week, when a script and a little bit of investment, the computer can do it in an hour or two automatically. And that person, you don't have to fire them. Almost no one ever gets fired when we automate them out of a job. They always get transferred somewhere else in the company, right? Never have I seen anyone get fired. And people are like, oh, you're going to automate, and I'm not going to have a job, and I'm going to get fired. Logically, you'd think, hey, that makes sense. It's just, automate it and get rid of them. Well, I mean, obviously, if you were Ford Motor and you had all robots building cars, and you really did not need any humans, that might be a problem. But normally what happens, you have 50 people on staff, you automate 2 or 3 of their jobs. They just take those people and put them onto some other project or some other activity. And their jobs don't go away, and the company is much better for it. The company is getting that much more for the same labor investment. You invest the same amount of labor, you get 50% or double or triple the efficiency and output from that team. That's the whole point, right? So, questions. We want to go back and yeah. So Topcat, yeah. So he's thinking me about the listen. 30 years of doing this. Yeah, in 27 days, it's 30 years. And May 1 of 1990. And all these conversations are based upon the pain and agony and the good things that happen and the bad things that happen. And people tend to remember the bad things more. I mean, I remember, I'm forgetting the basketball, Michael Jordan. They were like, oh, don't you like to win? And he goes, yeah, but he goes, I like to lose too. He goes, I learn much more by my failures. When you fail, you learn. And when after 30 years, I've failed a lot of stuff, right? And you get to a point where you get to come back and share that. Like the people that work for me, for the most part, I got one guy that's older than me, but almost everyone else is much younger than I am. And my job is to share that and help them learn that without them needing 30 years of experience. If I can take a person with 5, 6, 7 years of experience and give them the wisdom of 30 years, that's my goal. And that's what the people in my company get. And of course, this hour a day, you get it too for this hour. So I'm happy to answer any question, including when it's good, bad, or ugly. A lot of stuff Claris/FileMaker does is fantastic. Every once in a while, they step on it, right? Like anyone else does, we step on it too. Like if you go to Starting Point, there's a couple bugs in there. You're like, how'd that ever get through? But it does. So question. Okay, so Topcat's talking about how do you sell FileMaker. So we're gonna pivot a little bit off of this conversation. We're gonna start handling these other conversations. We'll get back to Michael's question too. So Topcat's like, how do you convince your supervisors? Okay, so here's what you have to do, Topcat. You have to find not something you care about, matter. Okay, you hear me in there? What you want to do doesn't matter. You need to find something that's important to the managers that you want to convince. What is a problem they have? They probably have a dozen problems. Go find a problem that you can solve with automation and FileMaker and automate it. But what you need to do is document how long it took before, then build the process and have it do whatever it is after the fact, and then show them, here's your new thing, and here's your new system, and now I've saved you this. Isn't FileMaker great? It's called guerrilla warfare in the world of FileMaker. It's one of the biggest, most skill sets to have as a FileMaker advocate, or any advocate, right? here is this tool, and you're like, I don't care about a tool, it's just more money, right? And then so I said, well, fine, how about I'm going to go into my corner, I'll be back in a week or whatever, or maybe you need the help from one of the folks at my coaching team, send out an email to support RC Consulting and ask them how the hell you solve a problem. And they can give you a free hour coaching if you haven't had one, whatever. The point is that you need to solve a problem that you don't necessarily care about, but your managers really care about. Some sort of thing that's bugging them, especially if they can go up to their bosses and promote it. And they'll probably go to their bosses and take all the credit for it, okay? They'll be like, yeah, there's this Top Cat guy, but yeah, screw that guy. What I'll do is I'll take the credit for it. Listen, even the most weaselly supervisor or manager, if he knows that you're the goose that has the golden egg that made the stuff that he could promote to look good, then he will come back to you and say, how do we do more of this, right? You do run into people randomly who are beyond stupid, and they shoot the goose that lays the golden egg. I do see that happen. And then, but it's like they don't, it's just bizarre, right? Anyway, so the point is, if you want success, then you have to have the people above you have success, and have them promote it vertically upward. Oh, look, we're like 28% more efficient because we have this new process that does this. And then we took these staff, and we were going to have to hire staff. We didn't have to hire anyone. We took the same staff, and we're doing 30% more work or 50% more work or whatever it is. Find something they care about, right? So, well, yeah, Elzo's saying the same thing, right? You have to, I mean, you have some people who just burn oxygen and they're a waste of space. And I'm just speaking frankly here. But most people, if they have any sort of aspiration to move up in the world, know that they have to kind of look good to move up. And if you can help them look good, if that makes sense, if you can help them look good, then they're probably going to approve more FileMaker work for you, one, if that's your goal. Or maybe the goal is really for you to help the company, or maybe the person above you is a friend and he's a great person or whatever they are, or she is a great friend, and you're going to help that person move up and whatever. The point is that you have to be able to show ROI to someone, and the ROI goes uphill, and then it gets promoted and PR'd and politicked, and then it's positive. Right? So that's important stuff. So next question, I'm going to go back to Michael's question. I'm going to make myself slightly larger. I keep kind of coming in and out of frame. The camera's a little bit wider, but I slice it up like this so I don't take too much space. I started learning FileMaker mainly, and this is from Michael, right? I started learning FileMaker mainly because of the runtime feature allowed me to make inexpensive applications for my client. Yeah, basically free applications for your client, right? That's what the runtime does. Many of which are one-man shows and small offices. I don't have the type of client that would avail of cloud services requiring a file license. Now the runtime is deprecated. Is there any point continuing training future versions considering the cost? Yeah. So basically the short version, if you ask FileMaker honestly, they'll say no. Because I've had meetings with them, multiple meetings from multiple senior people, and this goes back years. And the rub is that FileMaker, they did a calculation, I'm sure. I'm almost positive this is what happened, because I've done this kind of the same kind of thing. But I've solved it a different way. So in biz, so let's back up a second. So in biz, so that way you understand what they're doing. When you take on a customer, there's a certain amount of cost to that customer. There's an acquisition of the customer acquisition cost, like how much does it cost for you to get that customer? And then what does that customer spend? And then how much support do they require? And so there's this calculation, like how much they cost versus initial acquisition and continued happiness of the customer versus how much they spend. And FileMaker figured out somewhere along the line that about $800 or $900 was the threshold at which they cared about customers. And so the problem is that they really don't want individual users. And what they did is they because the individual user is going to pay $800 or $900 for a product. And so what they did is the entry level tier is 5 users. Okay. The problem with their strategy is it actually goes and it disempowers you. And this is Michael on the Twitch side. So Michael's trying to learn the platform, be an advocate for the platform. He wants to get inexpensive solutions in people's hands. FileMaker came to the calculus that they used. I would never use this calculus, but came to the conclusion that those people were not of great value. And maybe they're not of great value, but they have a way of influencing the conversation. Not even their conversation, right? Because say Michael decides he's going to leave FileMaker and go with some other product, right? And what ends up happening is then Michael's out there talking it up with his friends and social media. And so instead of Michael talking up, hey, there's this FileMaker thing and it's really kind of too expensive for me, but it has like this like free tier for like one person or two people or something. And so I really use it at that level, but you ought to check it out. It does a lot of great stuff. I would rather humor and put money into the Michaels of the world, me personally, than tell you to go away, right? And so that's why in our organization, like for example, there are most serious consultancies. If you talk to them and you really get them honest, now right now may not be a time for that, but generally, if you go to them anytime outside where there's not some sort of economic mayhem going on, they're going to say, well, we won't talk to you unless you have at least a $15,000, $20,000, or $30,000 conversation. I could mention explicit consulting companies' names. They have so much overhead and so much management that goes into managing a project, they can't make money on a $20,000 development project. Now, what we did with RCC is that we have the ability to take on large projects. We also have the ability to service and help people who want to spend $500 or $400. And so we have that ability. We completely solved a huge arsenal of problems because I see the value of empowering small people, onesies and twosies, because even if that person only spends $200, then that person will go out and talk to other people, and you never know how the conversation goes. I'd much rather have someone saying semi-positive things about me than me talking about my competitors, like, oh, those competitors, Richard was great, but he was just, but now I'm going to talk about his competitors. Screw that. I'd rather, even if we don't make money on you at all, that you have a positive impact and a positive influence. That's my vision of the world. Notice that I'm not a senior manager at a Fortune 10 company, right? So maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe my vision is not big enough to make big bucks and drive Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff, right? Maybe my vision is not big enough for that. I don't know. And I'm being very honest with you. Some of my engineers are here going, holy shit, boss, you can't say all this. I'm sure Wolf Paw's going to like shit right about now. Hang on, there's a conversation down here. Yeah, no one said anything else. So the idea is that, and this is back to Michael's question, it's the number one issue that everyone has, runtimes and peer-to-peer, and they're both financially related to extraordinarily small businesses. Now, if, and you should write this in here, any of you people who are here listening and you are this kind of small person, a business, you're making small apps, you want to do it in your spare time or it's your full-time job, you want to do that. If FileMaker made FileMaker Pro free, if they did that and they gave it away, but then there was no peer-to-peer in it, so that would go away. Just take that to the bank. So when you got Pro, it'd be free, and there would be absolutely no way you could exchange or share data with another user in FileMaker unless you wrote a check to FileMaker. Is that an acceptable ground for you? I mean, it actually would be, in a lot of ways, I think that solves so many problems. And it keeps people talking about the platform, and I don't think FileMaker has that much tech support on just Pro. And maybe there is no tech support, maybe that's part of the deal. Tech support's only available to paying customers. They don't offer tech support to free downloaders, right? To me, I think this broadcast, I'd have 500 people in here tripping over each other asking questions because everyone would be excited about having a platform that they could build apps with that didn't cost them any money. And then if they wanted to share them in a collaborative environment where the value really comes in, the businesses want to share that, then the business should be willing to write a check for that. So it seems to me, so of course no one's saying anything, so everyone must be dead. But that's my vision. I've expressed my vision to them. Their vision is unchanged as of 3 weeks ago. So I I think you have to use a FileMaker developer server, the FDS. I think that gets you in inexpensively. The problem is FDS is really designed for, well, here's the flip side of this. I mean, well, yeah, it gets tricky. I mean, the reality is that, we offer the complete bundles, and, there are limitations on how we sell the bundles. So if I go back over here to bundles, what you can do, here's an alternative to what you can do. You can do what they call the SBA program, which is kind of what this is. What you do is if you build a vertical market application, FileMaker will let you buy copies of Pro discounted, single copies of Pro discounted, and bundle it with your application. The cost of it, I don't even know what they charge. Because we have such a high volume, I get a pretty good discount on it. But for example, this bundle right here is it's the complete training subscription bundle. What makes it a bundle is the fact that it comes with a special version of FM Starting Point. We have Starting Point, the one you download that's free, and then we have some extra widgets and things in what we call Starting Point Enhanced. That is only available with this bundle. So I built a solution. You bundle it with FileMaker, and you can sell it, and it comes with a copy of FileMaker Pro. You can do that. It's up to you to explore that. If you want to explore that, then I would recommend sending an email to Tyler Furman. We need to find the email for Tyler Furman and send that to him. He's the U.S. Western representative on the SBA program. It's called the Solution Bundle. So SBA, Small Business Administration, everyone knows about that right now. They're very popular. And then SBA at Claris is the Solution Bundle Agreement. So you build a solution, you're going to bundle it with FileMaker, and you have an agreement to distribute that, right? Makes sense? And so you could buy, you're going to buy 20 or 50 or 100 copies of FileMaker Pro at a time, and you can bundle it. So it's the full version. So the question is, at what point does it economically make sense? If you're selling an app for $200, it makes sense. If you're trying to sell an app for $19.99 for $20, it doesn't make sense because the cost of FileMaker will exceed the $20 that you're trying to sell. So, so there are a couple options in there, but you just have to look. So trying to do a low cost, like, oh, I'm going to have angry FileMaker birds, and it's going to be $9.99 or some $9, $10, and I'm just going to sell. You can't get there with that. The platform just is not going to roll with that. Additionally, FileMaker, when people have a hard time installing, you're supposed to provide support for this kind of thing. So if people have a hard time downloading or putting the serial number into our bundle, RCC provides tech support for that. So if you go down this road and start doing this, you're going to have some sort of tech support mechanism to help these people out. So it's kind of important. I am like Michael, a one-person database, make one database for my wife. Is there a way to sync data from an iPhone back and forth database, right? Yeah. You can either spend money on it with a third-party app called MirrorSync and do it, or you have to write your own code. So if you want like instantly two-way syncing to a local file, easy, doesn't exist. Because, I mean, if you're just collecting mobile data, like say you're just collecting, like out taking pictures. Like there was this one business, they would run around and take pictures of signs in New York to make sure the signs are in compliance or whatever they're doing. So all they're doing is creating records on the mobile device. Then all you have to do is do an import up, one-way dump uphill to the cloud, to the database on the cloud. And so there's no sync. The problem is with this two-way sync. I had a senior engineer come to me about 3 or 4 years ago. I'll never forget it. And I knew better at the time, and I tried to tell him not to. He doesn't work here anymore for reasons like this. He goes, oh, screw the 360 folks. MirrorSync is too expensive. It's, $500 or $600 or $400, whatever. They have an entry-level tier. You could buy it. And then that gives you the sync. But you really need to be using FileMaker Server to get that sync to go. It's, once again, if you can't afford server, you can't afford sync. So let's just sequence those conversation. But he says, I'm going to write my own. This is a guy that's $75 an hour, $80 an hour. So not necessarily cheap. And that's not what we bill. That's what he charges us, right? So he starts working on this project for a customer. He promised the customer, yeah, I can bill it in 100 hours. 400 hours later, he had worked for free for a month and a half or 2 months. He finally had the Syncy solution, and he swore to me he'd never do it again. I tried to explain to him, hey, I remember this conversation. I told you not to do it. This is dumb. because I did this before, but I have some engineers who don't listen, right? And so engineers who really don't listen to me end up going bye-bye, right? They can't work for me if they don't listen. And so that does happen. You have people who are convinced in their own awesomeness to the point where they will disregard common sense. So my common sense to you is, if you can't afford server, then you can't afford sync, and then you have to build your own, okay? And so that's kind of the way it is. So, because really all the syncy solutions, for the most part, they're server based. I don't, because whenever you set up a sync solution, like someone pays us to do it, like, hey, we want starting point over here and starting point over here, and we want to have these two things sync. They're going to get charged $150 an hour because a junior engineer can't do it. A senior engineer, mid-level or senior engineer, has to do the work. At least $150 an hour to do the work, and the software is going to be probably $1,000, and then there's probably going to be $2,000 or $3,000 of labor on top of it. So you're into it immediately for like $4,000. And so people who are going to spend $4,000 on a sync solution have already decided that $1,000 for FileMaker server is okay. Right? Does that make sense? So I'm not picking on anyone here at all. Like, not at all. Understand that I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying that's kind of the reality where this at. There's things you can do for free, and then there's things you can do if you put money into it, right? So it's like you can buy a car for $8,000, but if you want a car that goes 150 miles an hour, then it's more than $8,000. And so as you add requirements and more capabilities and more speed and more whatever, there's some sort of investment that has to go in there with that. Yeah, so Elzo is talking about stuff. Yeah, so hey, you there, David?
Yeah, we have a question over on YouTube
Sure.
from Craig. He says, how much coding is needed for FileMaker, if any, what language?
Wow, total basic beginner question, which is a great question. So FileMaker does not, okay, so, I mean, okay, well, I can answer the second question first. FileMaker uses its own language. You can talk to it with JavaScript, for example. That's becoming more of a thing these days. But at the end of the day, FileMaker is its own, for example, FileMaker mostly wants to be drag and drop, if that makes sense. It starts off as a drag and drop application. We really should do a like totally beginner's day. Can you ask this person if he wants to come back for like day one? Like all you guys, Top Cat and Elzo and all Michael, you guys are going to want to eject and go drink beer that day. But we would start off like super basic, right? Like the super basic, like first steps on the moon kind of steps, like basic. I want to check the schedule real quick. I have an open slot on Wednesday we could play with. Open slot on Wednesday that we could play with. Because I have these open Q&As, and so we can adjust these in flight if we want. So is that gentleman willing to come back next Wednesday? Because that's what we could do a demo on that. The answer is it doesn't use it's a proprietary system. It just is. It's special. It has FileMaker is a very special platform. It's why I'm doing it for 30 years. If FileMaker sucked, I wouldn't be here. It doesn't suck. I think there's, politics and decision making that go into it that I don't understand. That don't make sense to me. But I'm just one tiny person, right? So anyway, yep. So, what do you think about the idea of a total basic class? Does he have an interest in that? I don't know if he's still listening or not.
Yeah, I'm asking him, and then also while the stream catches up on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't know. There's about a 1 minute delay on Twitch, not plus or minus any commercials. Once again, if you're seeing a commercial on Twitch, if you spend the $1 a month or whatever it is, you sign up for that, they'll remove the commercials for you. So if you want to be around, and watch more of these, then you might want to do it without whatever Taco Bell commercials or whatever's happening. I have no idea what commercials it is because I don't know here. To me, it's one big video, but then it takes a pause and injects a commercial, and then I think the far more commercials that happen, the more of a delay that by the end of it, there's probably a 3 or 4 minute delay, would be my guess. Although a couple like iMog, I think it paid the buck and he wasn't getting the commercials. So, but we haven't seen him since Wednesday. Last time we saw iMog was Wednesday. So, But FileMaker is designed to be drag and drop. It starts off really, really easy, and it can be very, very deep if you want it to be. There's a lot you can do with it just out of the box. There's also free solutions that help you get things going. It depends on, like for example, and once again, I'll answer this. Once again, this is a Salesforce kind of conversation. If you come to me right now and you're sitting here and we're having a conversation and you say, I need a CRM and I need it in 5 days. And then I would say, well, you're not going to build your own in 5 days. So either you're going to need like a Salesforce solution, like Salesforce is like spend the big bucks, but that's if you need like 1,000 people connected to it or whatever. Or you can use like FileMaker with a starting point would be functional same day, right? Salesforce, I think you can get it going same day. FileMaker, and then with one of our CRMs, especially if you use Cloud 2 in the starting point CRM, that would be same day. So you go to FM Starting Point, which is the free CRM, and you get that going. And it's the whole idea is it unlocks you can edit it, right? That's the whole point. But since it's a completed tool, it's like if I said, if you've never built your own home, and most people haven't, and I give you a home, I say I need a home in a week, okay? So here's your new home. And then I give you some tools in a box, and I say, if you want to change anything, here's the tools. And you go, what the hell? How are you going to know how to do electrical work and plumbing? Well, the house is done. So as long as you don't need to change anything, you can put the tools down, just live in your house. Most people want to do some changes, so they need some help learning. That's where you need to connect with a FileMaker developer or talk to one of our coaches at FM. Just send an email to, we have coaches that charge about half the hourly rate, and they walk you through stuff. It's very inexpensive, and they offer free 1-hour consultations. So you just send an email to support@rcconsulting.com, and they can help you with that.
And I didn't hear back from the person who asked the original question, but I did get responses from 2 other people that they would be interested in something like that on Wednesday.
Yeah, let's see if we can do. The problem is FileMaker. All these events are cross-listed on FileMaker Claris's website, and so they're locked at 14 days out. They're kind of locked in unless I cancel the whole thing. What I will do is we need to make a change to this here and talk about it's going to be open Q&A with emphasis on building with emphasis on brand new beginning FileMaker people. Brand new, like this is a field, there's a layout, there's a record, that kind of stuff, right? Because you're like, for example, if you're a basic, you know nothing about building your own home, and then for you to learn what it takes to build a home, it's a lot of skill, a lot of years of work and labor. So you always want someone to help hold your hand on that. We can do some of that here in live training, but there's also training courses that we have. Obviously, once again, the training courses that are here at fmtraining.tv, or you get someone to help you, etc., and you cut the corner right on that. So you can get an instant CRM solution going with FileMaker. FileMaker has limits in scalability to like several hundred users at the same time, 300 or 400 or 500 users max. And then you would need to set up separate servers with synchronization between the two. But if you have 1,000 users using a solution, then you should be able to afford getting a synchronization solution going on that. So FileMaker dynamic markup language. Yeah, so to be officially, so just to help everyone out, FileMaker dynamic markup language, FDML, is not a real thing, right? So understand that when people say languages, they mean Python, PHP, Ruby, Fortran if you're that old, Basic, Logo if anyone remembers that from like 40 years ago, C++, C#, Java. Those are all like recognized languages. FileMaker, FDML, whatever they call that, no one recognizes that. Someone had to give FileMaker's code a name, and so it's its own proprietary system is what it is, right? So that's why I don't use that term, because when I say that, unless I have a bunch of FileMaker nerds that have as much experience as I do, most people have no idea what that is, and so it's its own proprietary thing. It has code. I mean, for sure, it has code. The code is very human readable. If I go into, just to show you how it is, like some code systems, like if you're writing PHP or something like that, not really readable from like a normal human. Like, so here's this FileMaker file here. Let's go look at the code. So I'm going to go up to the code area, which they call scripts. but really they're computer programs. So this should say computer programs or code, right? Or procedures. If they're SQL, they'll call it a stored procedure, right? Stuff like that. So they'll come in here. Now these, let me close that. These are the list of all the programs that I have written in the CRM. So when you download the CRM, I'm kind of closing these folders up. I wish I was an auto close on all these. Real pain in the butt. So these are all folders. This is all the scripts that we have written to build out a CRM. So this is all the code to make the CRM work. And so, for example, when the thing first starts up, it runs a program. And that program is 001. We give it a number, and this is it. So if you read it, it's kind of human readable, like allow user abort. Now, you may not know really what that means, but you know what user is and whether they can abort or not. So you have kind of an idea what that might mean. Set error capture. Errors, what kind of errors? Okay. Pause or resume the program. That's pretty straightforward. Pause or resume. Those are like verbs, and that's the noun, right? And then this one here, pattern count, something about a pattern, and then about an application, right? And it's like, okay, right? And then down here, some other code, set a variable. If everyone been to high school and had Algebra 1, you know what a variable is, right? And, or college or wherever you learn that. And then go to a layout. Okay, you've learned a layout is basically a screen. So go to this screen with a name. Okay, that's cool. Show all the records. Okay, that's the records you have in that screen. Show them all. Okay, and so you understand that it's kind of like readable. Now some developers will make this like really kung fu nasty stuff, but we build this once again in this solution because it's a training application. You hear me? You're in there. It's a training application. It's training, and so you can use it as CRM. It's great for that. I use it myself, but we want you to train with it. So that's why. And so the code is designed to be as simple as possible. Even if it's longer, even if it's not as fast, I always trade understandability for speed and performance. So Michael broke his internet. Michael, you're a very bad person. You should not break your internet. We're going to have to report you to the Federal Bureau of Investigation for that. Very bad. Now, there is going to be a recording of this. David will edit it. David Castillo, mild-mannered video editor. What's your plan for the recording on this?
I am going to edit it and then have it available for everyone to rewatch in case their internet broke.
Okay, and so we'll be posting that. We'll probably send out a video, or a email to everyone tomorrow, Saturday. We don't normally do Saturday ones, but since everyone's at home every day, then pretty much every day is the same as any Saturday is as good as Monday. So we will send out an email with the latest videos that we've done. Probably this one won't make the cut yet. We won't get this one edited for a couple days. But what we do is we cut out any of the stupid malfunction stuff on it. This one hasn't had too much. I don't think I've had too many malfunctions on this one, right? Yes? So, but Michael, yeah, we answered all your questions. So the answer is 42. Is it 42 or 47? One of those is kind of like an internet kind of a known thing. Kind of a funny Star Trek reference. Is it 42? I think it's 42. So the answer, Michael, is 42. Okay. I just screwed Michael up. He's going to be completely confused, unless he's a Star Trek fan or some sort of sci-fi fan. There was always like in Star Trek, there was every time you go by walking down the hallway, you always see these references to 42. And I don't remember where it comes from, Isaac Asimov or something, wherever it came from. And so it's like this number. It's almost like a secret handshake or something. And you'd see it and people would laugh at it. Right. So, all right. Well, that's about it. So next week, once again, if your training is not up to date, please spend a couple bucks. Keep your training up to date. Next week, we're going to be doing deprecated features in FileMaker. This is where you guys all get to complain again about the runtimes. I'm so excited about that. And we'll talk about, more importantly, other things that are going away. For example, in FileMaker Pro 19, if you have Windows 7, 8, I don't even know if there's a Windows 9, whatever. You have to have at least Windows 10 or you can't use FileMaker 19. So just keep in mind, if you're a Windows person, if you're a Mac person, remember they always use the current OS and one OS back, which means to run FileMaker 19, you're going to need 1015 Catalina or 1014, which is Mojave. right? You'll need one of those too. So for example, that kind of stuff. But there's also some little features in there, things like that. Some of which I know that they removed, but I'd almost have to talk to one of their engineers to understand why it matters, or what it really means, right? So, but we'll kind of go through it. If you have any questions, I can write them down, then I can throw them at the engineering team. So cool. All right, Michael, Elzo, Topcat, KWolf69, David, Michael, the other David. We will see you next week, Monday, 1 o'clock. See you here at fmtraining.tv. Thanks to David Castillo, who's been very awesome helping us today. David, any final words of wisdom from the mild-mannered video editor?
Yeah, make sure to check out fmtraining.tv.
God, that's such okay. I'll just give you some cash right now. This good promotional there. Right on.
Guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.